Watch how the third quarter goes down. At least they called this one. A'ja Wilson creams Lexie Hall like she did 5 times in game 1. Peggy Hammock get 15 calls in a row and one goes another way and she starts screaming and crying. A'ja Wilson doesn't like Lexie Hall. She's always pushing her, but that's an illegal screen, and then Lexie Hall gets called for a foul.
They called it defense, but it felt like a storm. One night, Indiana walked into Vegas and made the champs look strangely ordinary. The next night, the whistle carved the court into fragments, and everything turned into a tug-of-war with no rhythm and no breath. Somewhere inside that mess lived the real question. Who could stay calm long enough to win a series that refused to settle down? If you zoom out, you see two truths colliding. Indiana proved they can win with poise, spacing, and shot-making that looks almost surgical. Vegas proved they can drag a beautiful game through mud and still find a way to land the last punch. That's why this story doesn't start with a highlight. It starts with a feeling, the instant you realize composure is the rarest skill on a playoff floor.
I mean, it feels like a physical game every game. Feels like it's been a physical season. But yes, I think, I feel like I've been on the ground a little bit more this series so far. But we just keep getting back up, so that's all you can really say.
Indiana didn't just steal Game 1. They rewrote the vibe in the building. Kelsey Mitchell's 34 wasn't volume scoring, it was precision. Timing, footwork, balance, and reads that punished late closeouts over and over again. When Vegas loaded up, she didn't force shots. She bent the defense and let her teammates breathe. That kind of discipline on the road is worth more than a hot streak. It's the model for how to win 4 times in May and June. On the other end, the Fever's shell defense did its job without gambling. They layered contests, showed bodies, and turned A'ja's touches into tough off-balance attempts. 6 makes on 22 tries doesn't happen by luck. It's angles, hand discipline, and 5 defenders deciding to move on a string. Vegas kept waiting for the familiar home surge, the avalanche that usually buries visitors. It never came. Control isn't loud, but it travels.
Take that. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's one. That's one. That's one. They ain't song and dance to me, man. I'm just grateful, man. I love basketball. I love playing with my team. So let's take what we can get.
Game 2 didn't build. It jolted. Possessions started and stopped like traffic lights. Cuts were bumped. Rebounds turned into wrestling matches, and the third quarter stretched under a parade of whistles that turned the action into powder. 16 fouls in a single frame isn't intensity. It's interruption. And when a game breaks into fragments, the team that thrives in fragments takes over the tempo without ever pushing the ball. That's exactly what Vegas did. Free throws stack points while erasing pace. Dead balls erase the advantage of speed and timing. Indiana's best version is a flowing one. Drive, kick, swing, and attack the next crease. But you can't run wind sprints at a red light. The Fever were forced into half-court sets, late clock jumpers, and a rhythm that felt like walking uphill in sand. That wasn't an accident. It was a plan, and it worked.
A'ja Wilson, look at that foul they called for. Yeah, saved her. That's some bullcrap. I love Aaliyah Boston. Great job today playing defense. Look at that. Another foul. Bailed out by the refs. I get pissed off. This is the worst one. They call this a jump ball. How is that a jump ball? Nobody even had possession. Aaliyah Boston, that's anything is over the back. Not a jump ball.
She was a game-time decision with a back that didn't want to cooperate. That would have been enough to keep most players in warm-ups. Instead, Lexie Hull strapped herself in, found the corners, and started dialing from deep like pain was just noise in another room. 5 threes later, she'd tied a franchise playoff mark and sent a message that went beyond a box score line. Indiana doesn't fold just because the night gets mean. The beauty of those shots wasn't the arc. It was the context. Hull hit them while absorbing contact on cuts and crashing the floor more times than anyone prefers to count. Every make bought the Fever another 2 minutes of belief. Every scramble back on defense signaled that the series wasn't going to be decided by comfort. You can scheme for a scorer. You can't game plan stubbornness masquerading as spacing.
And A'ja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish.
Vegas answered the Game 1 masterpiece with a plan that attacked air, not just a player. They face-guarded Mitchell off the ball so every route became a collision. They hedged hard on ball screens to swallow her pull-up windows. They funneled her drives toward help that arrived a half step earlier than before. It didn't erase her skill. It smothered her oxygen. Passes that were clean on Sunday turned risky on Tuesday. Those micro-delays add up. When a scorer's first look is late, everything downstream slows down. The feet aren't set, the balance isn't perfect, and the release lives a fraction lower than normal. That's the gap between a 34-point breeze and a grimy night that feels like carrying a backpack. Vegas wasn't just physical, they were disciplined in their pressure. It bent Indiana's possessions away from Mitchell's best spots and into traffic, right where the Aces wanted the ball to live.
In the WNBA, you cannot blindside somebody and set a screen on them without enough time for letting the player being screened react. And then look at this. This one, their arms lock up, but you gotta let go at some point. Like, you can't bring the person closer to you and just stay locked in while the offensive player is trying to get the rebound. But we know A'ja Wilson only receives fouls.
Aaliyah Boston played a version of center that belongs in old film reels: leverage, angles, and the art of absorbing contact without giving ground. 10 points and 13 boards won't break algorithms, but watch the work it took to get each one. Reposts through forearms, second jumps in a forest of elbows, tip-outs that kept possessions alive when the lane looked like a crowded elevator. That's survival basketball, the unglamorous engine that keeps a team in the fight when the whistle and the body checks don't agree. And when possessions fractured, Odyssey Sims stitched them back together. Her game is a string of micro-decisions: hesitation steps through grabs at the waist, high arc floaters over length, sudden pull-ups before the trap arrives. 18 points felt like 28 because so many of them came after the play had already fallen apart. Those answers don't create montages. They create oxygen. Without that burst, the third quarter turns into quicksand.
So why don't you think you were able to find any flow? And when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from doing it.
Some buildings wait for their moment like a held breath. Gainbridge is built to exhale in waves. Teams think they're fine, then Indiana strings two stops together and the sound blooms from the baseline up. The same contact that looked invisible on the road suddenly has 17,000 witnesses, and that changes the way every bump feels. Officials are human. Players are human. Volume shapes margins. For a group that lives on rhythm, Mitchell's stride into the pull-up, Boston's footwork across the lane line, Hull's feet set in the slot, the home floor turns energy into runway. You get friendlier sight lines, you get a little extra burst in your legs, and you get an opponent who starts hearing footsteps when a 9-point lead shrinks to 4. Momentum is real in this sport, and in that building, it doesn't just swing, it snowballs.
Yeah, Lexie, obviously you were a late add to the injury report today. Just how are you feeling this morning with your back, and what do you have to do to be able to play? I mean, I'm feeling sore still, but I think just a lot of treatment, trying to get, our bodies as ready as we can be. Part of playoffs, I think, for everyone is it's the end of the season. Everyone's a little fatigued, everyone's a little sore. So just trying to go out there and do the best I can. A lot of treatment with our trainers. I'm really thankful for them to spend a lot of time with me today, a lot of time with me yesterday, getting me ready for tonight.
Control isn't the flashy part. It's the refusal to chase chaos when chaos begs you to sprint. Indiana showed that form in Game 1. Make the simple pass, relocate, hit the open catch and shoot, and get back with 5 behind the ball. Vegas took that chessboard and flipped it over in Game 2, leaning into contact, timelines broken by free throws, and pressure that punished any casual pass. One game showcased purity, the next rewarded persistence. The more this series stretched, the more the cost became obvious. Legs got heavy, small aches started talking louder, matchups tightened into pairs of hands fighting for inches. You don't win those stretches with romance, you win them with repetition. The Fever had to learn in real time how to manufacture pace when none exists, and how to keep their identity when the scoreboard begs for hero ball. That's maturity you can't download.
This is what happened. They cut it to 8 and they get 4 fouls in a row. That was not a foul. That was not a foul. This is crazy. 4 consecutive fouls. So from 8, it goes to 13 really quick, and the rest was history. It looks like Howard got hit in the arm by 2 players. They don't call foul. It was a shot clock. But the rest of the game were just a whole bunch of fouls being called, people flying.
Playoff basketball looks glamorous from a distance, but up close, it's a story about pain management and decision fatigue. Mitchell's Game 1 masterpiece will live on highlight reels, but the later chapters added a human layer, cramps, stingers, and the kind of fatigue that turns a routine curl into a negotiation with your own hamstring. That's the untelevised tax of 2 weeks spent wrestling for advantage. It doesn't diminish greatness, it authenticates it. Here's the bottom line. Indiana didn't just trade shots with a dynasty, they forced the champs to change. They made Vegas adjust coverages, compress spacing, and live with a whistle fest just to regain the wheel. That's not a moral victory, it's a scouting report for the future. If this version of the Fever is the baseline, imagine what it looks like after another offseason of reps, another season of late-game scars, another layer of chemistry baked in. The league felt that nudge. It won't forget it.
Yeah, I mean, it's how you look at it. It looks, honestly, by some of the fouls and the way it was going, it looks like we were almost too physical, but yet at the same time, I feel like we have to be able to get that on the other end. I think, sometimes when you just look at the game as a whole, when you look at the way that it works, sometimes you manipulate it into different ways and you have smaller matchups. So, I mean, I just don't think it's really possible all the time for some of those smaller matchups to really do such a clean job of that. But hey, I'm here to hoop, so none of my business.
If you want more deep-cut, women's basketball breakdowns with real tactics, real context, and zero fluff, help us grow this thing. Subscribing isn't just a button. It tells the algorithm there's an audience for serious coverage of the W. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch every drop the instant it goes live. Smash. Like if you value analysis over hot air, and drop a comment with your take. Who dictated pace better? Indiana's precision or Vegas's pressure? Your replies genuinely guide which matchups and film angles we tackle next. Also, we just launched a free newsletter for people who want more than the highlight cycle. Weekly breakdowns, play calls explained in plain English, and data nuggets you can't unsee once you start watching. Head to basketplay.online, join the list, and download the free guide we put together on reading modern off-ball actions in women's basketball. It's short, practical, and built so you can spot the difference between a ghost screen, a Spain twist, and a disguised Chicago action in real time. Sign up, grab the guide, and get the kind of updates that help you watch smarter. Thanks for riding with us. See you in the next one.